how this whole thing started. When I left baseball, I felt lost. Completely lost, Javi. I went through a really bad 3 years of my life. Never had I know what anxiety was. Kind of a little bit like, I never was depressed, but I kind of felt depressed.
Yeah, so questioning stuff.
Oh, I was lost. And then I called Pepe Ortega, who had drafted me in the 16th round, bro. And when I left, like 2 weeks later, I called him and I said, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I wasn't released. I need to go back. He goes, Papa, it doesn't work that way. You know, no, you don't understand, bro. I gotta get the fuck out of here. I'm not used to this. I don't even know. I don't have friends. Like I don't know what the hell's going on in my life. And I started going to job interviews, and I'm like, people are like, I'm like, this is what's out there. Like this is like, it's like, you know, if you speak to a sports psychologist, I mean, I've spoken to several, they'll tell you it's almost like a loss. People don't realize that's why you see guys in MLB, NFL, NBA, all that depression that happens to them after is real, Javi, because they identify with that.
Oh, of course, man.
That is everything. I was Fernie, the baseball player. I was
Absolutely.
that, and how I performed was who I was, and if I performed well, I was confident. If I performed bad, I was not confident. So now I'm teaching my son the opposite. I'm like, you know, I'll give you an example. Yesterday I'm playing catch with Sean, and we're playing outside the house. Bro, he's a little athlete, bro. He is. He loves soccer. He's got quick little feet. He throws hard. And I'm looking at him, and I was trying to do a focus drill with him, and I realized, bro, that he, like, after 5 minutes, like, I ain't focusing. He grabs a tree branch, bro, and he starts fucking running around. And I'm like, Sean, you gotta focus. And then all of a sudden, I got frustrated with my own son. Second time it's happened to me. And then all of a sudden, I realized, I'm like, bro, what am I doing, bro? The kid's 7 years old.
Yeah.
He picked up a stick. He's running around. And you know what he was telling me? Dad, say hut, throw me a pass, bro. So now I'm realizing, hold on a minute. This is even better. Now my son, from a baseball perspective, I'm throwing that guy touchdown passes and he's catching the ball. He's working.
Yeah,
he's actually
having
more fun, bro.
Field, man.
So the point was, like, you know, I just want him to have fun, man. And I tell him every night, because he, you know, every once in a while, like, he'll tell me he wants to do fishing now and he wants to watch MLB highlights. Or Messi. The guy loves Messi. My son loves soccer, bro. Like, he scores goals and he runs around with the thing. I never played soccer in my life. I don't know shit about soccer. I don't even know what position he plays. But I know that he scores goals, and that guy, and people love him. But I always tell my Papi, you know what? And I know he's 7, he doesn't get it yet, but I planted the seed. I'm like, you be you, dog. I want you to play your game. Whatever gifts God gave you, do that. You want to do music? You do music.
Yeah.
Both my brother-in-laws are very, very good at music. Naturally, they both can show up right here playing acoustic guitar, electric guitar. We'll be at my house one day, we'll smoke a cigar, and they bring it out. And I'm like, bro, I wish I could do that. You know, music is so, I don't know. I think two things in life that unite people, right, is music and sports. You know, you find, and anyhow, so that's when I started into business. This whole thing grew up. This whole thing started. I went to see, when we went to go hire VaynerMedia, I looked at Gary, and he starts asking me a little bit about me. And he said, do you have a podcast? And I go, no, I don't have a podcast. Who the fuck's not listening to me? He's like, no, you're wrong. He goes, how many ex-minor league ball players are sharing their story like you are? And I go, I don't know. He's like, man, you need a podcast. You know, you're the transition. So he named my podcast. I got to give him credit. He named transition.
Nice.
I added hashtag Life After Sports just to have a little skin in the game with it. And then I did it. And I was vulnerable, Javi. It was, I'm like, you know, when you put yourself out there and you want to say, you have to be real about it. So I had to kind of, like, if you listen to episode 1, episode 2, I'm sharing my story. At one time, I think I broke. And you have to be willing to go there.
Absolutely, man.
And it's tough. It's not easy, bro. And then sometimes you'll do it, and at the beginning I will feel stupid. I'm like, well, nobody's gonna listen to this. I look like I'm trying to, like, and then you get confident. You're like, actually, this is a skill set. It ends up being a skill set. And then I'm like, hold on a minute. But when I walk into a room and I sit with a board, or I walk with a CEO of a company, I exude myself in a professional manner in the same way I did on the baseball field. So this is the same thing. And if somebody doesn't like it, I don't give a f***. Yeah. What the f*** do I care? So it was.
Hey, fans don't boo nobodies, man. You know, And what you were saying there about like your identity, me and you are the same. You know, I feel like I would have gone through that, probably the same kind of like tribulations that you went through, but I was fortunate enough that I was able to bridge the gap with the coaching experience, you know. When I was playing minor league ball, I got to a point where the days were getting miserable, the bus rides were long. I knew I already had my degree, and I knew if I ever made it to the big leagues, it would have been a cup of coffee. It would have never been like, you know, I wasn't blessed like Joe Mauer, and I was content and happy with what I had gotten out of my career. But then I got the call from, you know, Coach Maneri, who's obviously a mentor of mine, and who I played for at Notre Dame, and he offered me a position on the staff. And I just thought it was too good of an opportunity at that point in my life to pass up, you know, to join his staff, be around the game, be able to impact lives, and coach at a high level in the SEC, and be under a guy that I know is going to have my best interests at heart and take care of me, you know, and show me the ropes.
No, and it's funny because we do have a similar past where you obviously were playing. You were playing baseball, you were coaching, and then you get into business. But let's rewind a little bit. Let's find out where'd you go to elementary? Where'd you go? Tell me a little quick. Let our listeners know a little quick story about who Javi Sanchez is.
Sure, man. St. Thomas the Apostle.
Yeah, I coached him at first. I was the AD there, dude.
Yeah, and PE coach, no?
Yeah, and then Father Guala got pissed at me because I ran a baseball camp. He wanted to take my money.
That was a dude. And then I went to Columbus, graduated class of 2000. Had obviously a
great ball players come out of Columbus High School.
For sure. I think my junior year we had 4 players drafted off of that high school team, which is unheard of.
Wow.
I don't know if it's happened since in South Florida. And then I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go play at Notre Dame. Actually, Demi Maneri, who was a Hall of Fame coach at North Dade, was Paul Maneri's son, and he was an older gentleman, super respected in the baseball world. If you're growing up playing baseball here in Miami, you need to know who Demi is. One of my biggest mentors, was kind of bird dogging or helping out for the Brewers. You know, he was like a special assistant to their front office. So my junior year, when we had all those fantastic players, he was coming and seeing me as an underclassman, and he's the one that kind of planted the seed, saying, "Hey, you need to get out to South Bend. My son's the head coach here, Paul." Paul was actually a Columbus grad, class of '75.
So Paul Maneri is a Columbus grad?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I my kids go to Westminster, and we were having this. I was having dinner 2 nights ago with a gentleman who graduated from Columbus High School. He's a doctor. And I was saying, like, man, so are you going to keep your kids at Westminster? Because, they offer pre-K through high school.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I asked that is because Columbus is such a prestigious school. It's an all-boys school, obviously, here in Miami-Dade County. It's developed, I think last year, they hit a record where they had the most Fortune 500 CEOs at any one given time. I believe it was Mas Tech, the gentleman who from Penske, and I think Ryder. So you have 3 Columbus grads who are Fortune 500 CEOs. That says a lot about a school. I mean, it could be time, or whatnot. And I have a lot of friends that went there. Obviously, you guys and everybody speaks wonders about that school.
Yeah, I loved it. I had a great experience there, and I hope all the Belen guys are listening.
But so then you went to Columbus High School. You go to Notre Dame. Talk to me about Notre Dame, bro.
It was a big change. Obviously the climate, the academics were challenging. My first year, just being on that team, the speed of the game in fall practice, I remember, the bases were still 90 feet, but they felt way further. Pitchers were still throwing 88 to 90, but it just felt like more sink, more movement. And it was a big adjustment period. And one of the reasons why Demi and I got so close is he would spend the falls in South Bend while Coach was coaching the team. He'd be in the dugout kind of, just being around. And I had a lot of like meaningful conversations with him. Like after practice, he was seeing me as a freshman, like far behind on the depth chart. My goal every week in Notre Dame during the season was just to make the travel squad.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, the 27th guy if we were traveling with 27.
So did you play as a freshman, Javi? Did you get in the lineup?
I had 13 at-bats, 0 for 13.
13 at-bats your freshman year.
And then I bounced back my sophomore year.
Okay.
And, with a couple injuries, I ended up, getting, I think it was like 10 games into the season, I ended up becoming the starting shortstop. And that was the 02 season, which that team went to the College World Series. So I was a starting shortstop as a sophomore. Never played shortstop in high school. I was a second baseman, corner guy. I'm not...
Mind you, you're 6'3".
Fern, I'm a guy who's like not the fastest guy, could never really hit that great. I was always a student of the game. and I just worked and controlled the things that I can control. You know what I mean?
No, and it's funny because I remember I can still go back and remember when we used to see each other at the boys club years ago, and I think you were playing. Did you play with Manny Crespo and the Bulldogs? And
yeah.
I remember you and your brother. It's crazy the memories that come back, but you were always that tall kid, and you loved the game and you worked hard. And dude, it's funny. I think I was a really good athlete. I was a good athlete, but I wasn't a baseball player. I taught myself how to hit a baseball, and it's because of the hand-eye coordination. You know, you could tell me to lift weights, jump, run a 60, but baseball is such a skill set oriented baseball game, type of game that you got to put in the hours and the work, dude, and the reps.
Yeah. So like me, I loved the game so much, I adored it, that I knew I was just gonna put in the work in the cages, do whatever I had to do as a player to deserve success. You know, like. Even getting recruited to Notre Dame, that's not something that just happened, you know. It's like they say, it takes like a ton of years of hard work to become an overnight success. I would have never ended up there had I not put in all that work, had the batting cage at home, all the sacrifices that mom and dad made, in order to get me there. And even getting in was a struggle, you know, with the SAT score and just trying to limp in there. And my career over there, you know, like people from the outside look at it and they say, man, this guy, you know, was a captain his senior year, starting shortstop as a sophomore, got drafted in the 14th round as a catcher, but man, there were some dog days in South Bend, you know, where everything wasn't as glitz and glamour as the story looks. Even at one point, you know, going into my sophomore year in the fall, I had like frank conversations with Coach Maneri, who I ended up working for, basically asking me if I was like, you know, wanting to transfer because he didn't see, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel for me in the program.
And how was that for you mentally?
Oh, I mean, I knew what I was capable of. And I knew when I left Miami, I got on a plane to South Bend that I was going to graduate from Notre Dame with a degree, whether that was playing baseball or not. Even if I had to give up on my dream of playing ball, I knew that I was going to come back a graduate. No,
that's amazing. I'm a Miami kid from 305, and you know I'm sure that schools maybe like FIU and University of Miami could have had you and or maybe overlooked you. I mean, sometimes
it's overlooked me. Pepe Ortega used to run that North-South game, and I remember getting crushed when they put out the list of the guys that got invited to that. And I wasn't one of them, but I knew I wasn't going to get drafted out of high school. And I was realistic. I knew what I was capable as a player. Obviously, I would have died to play at UM. I grew up a Hurricane fan. I grew up in the shadows of Mark-Light Stadium, seeing all those great teams. But I wasn't talented enough. I just didn't have that much talent to be able to get recruited by that school.
I would argue that, you know, it's funny. You obviously were talented. I mean, for a guy to become the shortstop at the University of Notre Dame, you ended up in Omaha. I remember watching you on TV.
Put Guthrie in the book.
You hit a nice little home run in Rosenblatt.
Yeah.
And I was proud of you. And I don't know. I was always the type of guy that just rooted for all my boys on here. Miami's an interesting town when it comes to baseball, man. And we'll talk about that because you've coached at the highest levels, and you've been a recruiting coordinator, and I would love to see how you look at stuff from 30,000 feet above. But if there's this happened to me in Dodge City, Kansas. I always say I was born in the 305, made in Dodge City. I went to JUCO in Dodge City, Kansas. Jayhawk League was great ball players. We actually had several guys that ended up playing at LSU. One guy was Robbie McClellan, who ended up being a closer in 2000.
I played for the Hayes Larks one summer.
You played for? So you played in the Jayhawk?
Yeah.
So you played in the NBC World Series?
That's actually after the 02 season.
Okay, I played with Eldorado Broncos.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Wichita, no? Is that World Series?
Yeah. So I feel sometimes, Javi, like you probably left here, and here comes this 6'3", good-looking guy, strong, can play the game, and you go to Notre Dame. Now you have fresh eyes, bro, and you were a different cat. Like, who's a Miami boy? And I feel like a lot of guys that leave here encounter success, and it's the same thing that happened to me. Was I went to Dodge City, Kansas. Yes, it wasn't Notre Dame, but it was a junior college. I had a great head coach by the name of Mike Jones. I've always said he's the best guy I ever played for, and he told me something, and I've said this before in the podcast. He called me one day, Javi, and he said, you look good striking out. And I was like, huh?
Is that a compliment?
I never heard a guy tell me that. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I just got to get you to load earlier and get you to work harder and teach you how to. I need to teach you an approach. You're raw. You need an approach at the plate. I think you can become a hitter. Ended up hit 30-something home runs. This guy had a couple jacks. Right, Ibanez did. But long story short, I do think that guys that leave here, they get this fresher breath air You know, it's not the same scouts looking at you.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're not like, I feel like you've been labeled since your freshman year.
Yeah, in Miami, I had average hands. You put me in an indoor facility in South Bend, and I got the best hands on the team. You know, it was the Latin, the Caribbean blood in us. You know.
But let's keep it real. I mean, you had guys in this town. Yeah, you had Luis Montañez, David Espinosa,
Pudge Herrera.
I mean, guys, the list goes on and on. You got the best. They got cream of the crop that lives in a 5 mile radius.
Yeah, you get overshadowed.
And yeah, so you know, I
never let that beat me down. You know,
no,
I always try to
because your love for the game was much stronger.
Yeah, and
than that.
those guys, I knew that they were more talented than me. SB, I still talk to this day. Lumont, him and I crossed paths, you know, in pro ball. He signed at a high school, 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, highest pick in Miami-Dade County since A-Rod.
I go to Notre Dame, play 4 years there, get drafted by the Twins, and 6 or 7 years after Lumont gets drafted, we're on the same all-star team, like in high or low A. It was in the Midwest League.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, man. How the worlds come together, you know?
How was your minor league experience?
I enjoyed it. I had some good managers. You know, you see leaving a program like Notre Dame where everything's so tight-knit and you got the camaraderie and everybody pulling for a common goal, and then you realize, damn, this is work. This is like the real world, you know. Everybody's kind of looking out for themselves, worried about their numbers. But I had, you know, I think I grew up a lot as a professional there, and realizing that this is no longer college. You no longer got like the rah-rah guys in the dugout and the camaraderie. You got to start growing up and fending for yourself a little bit. So from that aspect, I liked it. And I liked the fact that you wake up and you can get to control your schedule, and every day you're playing a game. Yeah, and I enjoyed that.
No, it was an eye opener for me. I can tell you when it really, really hit me. So I was in short season. Well, I ended up in Great Falls, Montana. So I get drafted, and I fly. I think like 3 days later, I was in Great Falls, Montana. So we had a stud team. My roommate was a guy who was a second baseman at the University of Miami. His name was Adam Ricks. I don't know if you remember Rixie, lefty. He was I think he was a 5th round draft pick out of there. Our catcher was Donnie Lucy, who was a catcher at Stanford University. Okay. We had our shortstop was a guy, he was out of UCLA. God, I had some West Coast guys.
Cali boys.
Yeah, we had our first baseman was Chris Kelly, who was the first baseman at Pepperdine. So long story short, we had this amazing squad.
They got you rocking the flat bill now. I see that.
Yeah. I got the flat bill. I'm representing Dodge City, bro. Nobody knows about Dodge City. So long story short season was awesome. We had stud pitching, stud players. I remember how this was in 04. I think I watched Adam Ricks I know for a fact. It might have been Miami LSU in Omaha. They lose. Miami's out, and I think like the next day, Rixie comes in from Omaha and is in Great Falls. So I was watching some of our teammates actually playing the College World Series while we were still waiting for them while short season had started. So we you know, it was funny because there was a bunch of college guys. Maybe we had 2 or 3 high school guys. One guy was our only high school guy was a guy named Boone Logan, who ended up pitching in the big leagues. He was a lefty. He was a second or first round pick out of a northern high school in Texas, and the guy threw overhand, but his head he was all over the place. But he was 6'4", 6'5", and they didn't know what was going to happen. He almost got released, and one of the pitching coaches for the White Sox in spring training, can't remember the guy's name, decided to make him a side armor, and the guy became a lefty specialist. I think he's pitched in the big leagues for 10 years. Last time I saw him was with the Yankees, but. Yeah, it was at the beginning. It was like a little bit more individual, you know, like the camaraderie. But then we made the playoffs, and we were playing the Cincinnati Reds were in a place called Billings, and they were whatever. We're in the playoffs, and for the first time again, I felt that like, hey, we're gonna try to win this whole thing. When it really hit me, when I saw the individualism of the game, or like the let's call it the business aspect of the game, was in spring training. When I got to spring training, I felt like a deer in headlights. I had never seen so many ball players in one given area. Everybody, I was small.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Neither could I. I saw all these monstrous guys, you know, these Dominican guys that are 6'5". They throw the ball from center field to home plate on a dime. Everybody's hitting.
Yeah.
No, it's unbelievable. and you're like,
infield, outfield, you got like 8 guys in center field, 7 guys in right field.
It was unbelievable, and it was a little bit like intimidating. But then like, okay, I can play here. I got it and whatnot. And then you start playing the game. And then I'll give you an example. You know, you're it's the bottom of the 7th inning. You're playing an inning game, and it's 2-1. And tying runs on second base, and there's no outs. And you're thinking, dude, do I bunt the guy over? Like, hell no, bro. You're swinging away. They want to see your at bats.
Absolutely, they want you to develop.
So that's when I realized that, like, you know what, I needed to change my mindset, and it was difficult because I was like, you know, Javi, I don't know if a lot of us Miami guys, well, I'll play for anything. I'll play for free. I just want to be in the minor leagues. But as you get older, you realize, man, this is really a business. And you know what? I have to admit, dude, I wasn't there. Mentally, I never crossed that bridge where I had needed to look at it like a business. I was more like survival for me again. You know, I got to stay around here.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, it was like trying to figure out what I was going to do next and when. You know, I think I ended up playing like 4 years minor league ball. I think I could have done 6 if I needed to, or 7. But once this opportunity presented itself to get into coaching, I was like, boom, let's go. Yeah, I was kind of I felt like I was on a treadmill in my career, you know?
Yeah.
And I was still trying to find ways to stay energetic, stay lively. I would bust my ass in the off season like we all did. And trying to, you know, work my way up the ranks. 1 year I had Tommy John, so I missed a year. I spent a lot of time in Fort Myers rehabbing that out of our headquarters there. But and that, you know, I hit a rough patch there, not playing for a year, kind of like trying to find my way again, trying to figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Came back, and then that's when I had when Paul gave me the call to join the staff.
So when you get that call to go become a coach at LSU, which is arguably one of the best programs in America year in and year out. I mean, I went to LSU one time. That was my freshman year at Coral Gables High School. We went to so Skip Bertman had a relationship with the gentleman who used to be the head coach at Gables High, and we were playing some teams in Lafayette. And we took a trip to LSU, and we went to Death Valley, the football stadium, and we went to the Box Bomb, is what they call it, the
Alex Box Stadium, man.
Yeah, Alex Box Stadium, and
the old box, man.
I'll never forget them putting highlight reels for us in the locker room, and one of them was, if I recall correctly, one of them was when the guy hit the winning home run against the University of Miami.
Yeah, Juan Morris.
The 9-hole hitter,
Morrison.
Alex Cora was on the floor crying.
He fell head first at shortstop. I fell head first in my living room.
I'll never ever forget that, man. And what a university and the you know. So you get to coach at the highest level. What was that experience like now? Because now you're a coach and you got to go. You know, tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
so I remember Coach gives me the call, and you know, I hadn't talked to him in a couple months. He would check up on me here and there, but I knew that there was some movement going on in his staff. He had been 1 year at LSU, and he's there trying to, you know, create a new culture, trying to get the program back on track. Skip won 5 national championships in a decade. Essentially, the John Wooden of college baseball, Skip Bertman is. And Paul, there was one coach in between them, and then Coach comes in from Notre Dame in between. They had a rough first year. There's some movement in his staff, and I had seen an article on it or a tweet, or I don't even know if that was around back then. And like 2 days later, I'm on the way to the field, and I see him calling me. And my heart immediately dropped because I knew exactly why he was calling me, you know. And so we had like a 20-minute conversation. He's like, look, I'll be the first one to tell you got to play until they rip the jersey off your back, but I'm identifying you as a guy. I want you on my staff. And I remember hanging up the phone and going into our manager's office, Kevin Bowles, who his dad, actually, John, was a manager for the Marlins for a little bit. And we had like an hour-long discussion. Like, damn, I even think we missed the first 2 rounds of first 2 groups of BP that day because it was just him and I having like a very frank conversation. And I contemplated, went back and forth for a couple days, maybe even like 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that. And then Paul gave me a call back again. I said, let's do this. So I packed the car and drove to Baton Rouge, man.
Where were you at, Javi, in the minors?
In Fort Myers, in High A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So similar story. So when I left baseball, like I said, again, I wasn't released. I had a meeting with our head coach. His name was John Orden, J.O. He used to be the catcher for the California Angels. And I looked at him and I said, J.O., for the next 10 minutes, you're going to be my father. You're not going to be my coach. I said, I'm not ever going to play in the big leagues. Do I have a chance of playing Major League Baseball? He said, probably not. And when they told me that, it's like, it's hard to explain the feeling. It's almost like a weight, a sadness. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a part of you, like, no, you know what? Screw this guy. But his answer was, with the White Sox. So I said to him, well, I'm asking for a release. And he said, no, they're not going to give you one. I'm like, but hold on a minute. You guys don't ever think I'm going to be a big leaguer with you guys and just release me and I'll go somewhere else. But that wasn't the case. And Javi, I went home and I was sleeping in an inflatable bed with freezing water. And the guy that was saving me was Dennis Ulacia. I don't even remember Dennis.
Yeah, lefty, Pace High School.
So Dennis was spotting me. I had no money, dude. And I was just like, because of D, I was able to eat and whatnot. He gave me a place to live, but he was going back to AAA in Charlotte. And long story short, I called my grandma and I said, you know what, this is, my grandmother raised me, took me to all my practices, and I just wanted to thank her and whatnot. And I knew it was over. But it's funny how the impact of a coach, man, how, you know, here you are, this young man, how you went to your coach and you said, let's have a conversation about, I'm sure you talked about the future baseball. Could you play in the leagues? Could you not play in the leagues? Here's an opportunity to coach at LSU.
Yeah,
so,
I remember Bolsey's message was like, dude, are you kidding me? Ride this out as long as you can. I promise you, the Twins like have enough, or they think highly of you enough, bilingual, graduated already. You know, if you want to coach, they'll give you an opportunity here to coach. Like, keep playing. You know, this organization thinks enough of you that you shouldn't just, you know, walk away from the game. But I was comfortable, man. I knew that I had accomplished more. I had exceeded my expectations as a player.
Me too, man. You had that peace in you, right? You know, you had worked. Yeah. You know, you worked your balls up.
It wasn't easy to know that, you know, driving away from Fort Myers, that I'm never gonna put on cleats again, you know. But I knew
what was that feeling like, Javi? Because that hit me.
It was tough. It was tough, man. But, you know, I was making the decision, you know, so I was kind of, you know, I felt comfortable and confident in my decision, and I was looking forward to that next chapter in my life, you know, so it was easy for me to turn that page. Yeah,
no, and you know what? You got to go then, so you still got to put on a uniform, cleats and whatnot. I think what made it hard for me was like when I wanted to run back to the bat, into the field, and I couldn't. Because it's kind of like a safe place for us, you know what I'm saying? Like, all hell breaks loose, like, all right, I'm back on the field, I'm back with my teammates, the structure, the wake up in the morning, that routine. I think that was the toughest part for me. Was when I look back, it really wasn't playing baseball. Like, I knew it was like I was fine not playing. It was just like the atmosphere, the locker room.
Yeah, totally.
So let's talk about this now.
I still got that when I was coaching.
Correct.
I mean, my first couple of years when I was doing catching drills with the guys, I'd literally suit up and, you know, block balls off the machine, show them the proper
show them up a little bit.
You know, just to let them know that, you know,
I'm
not that far removed, you know. And then as I got, you know, I was there 7 years, that kind of died down after the first couple of years. But yeah, I was on Coach Maneri's staff for 7 years at LSU. Culmination by the 09 we won the national championship, which was an amazing experience.
You have a ring? You have an LSU ring?
Yeah, 09. So that was the year I was the third base coach, and I just got catapulted into like some, you know, being a recruiting coordinator underneath one gentleman.
Shit, we were rooting for you to be the head coach at FIU, dog. I would text you, bro. Javi for FIU, bro.
But even there, like, you know, Terry Rooney, who's an assistant coach at Houston, was a relentless recruiter, and he was on our staff at LSU. Learned a shit ton from him. Cliff Godwin is the head coach at ECU. Relentless work ethic, hitting coach. Learned a lot from him. And those guys were the ones that recruited most of the players that we went out and won the national championship with in 09. And then obviously they passed the torch to us, and we were able to get some fantastic recruiting classes in there. I mean, every year when you're recruiting at a program like LSU and in the SEC, you're going to have a top 10 recruiting class in the country. If you put in the work and, you know, you're making your contacts and you're evaluating kids properly, you're locking up the best talent in the state of Louisiana, you're sprinkling in a couple kids from Texas, Cali, or Florida, you're going to have top 10 recruiting.
Is Louisiana prime time location for a hotbed for baseball as well for local high school players?
Oof, that's a great question. In my assessment, there's better baseball players in the city of Dade County than there probably are in the whole state of Louisiana.
But you guys were winning with Louisiana guys?
Oh, you have to, you know, because of in-state tuition and because those kids are, you get the best player in the state of Louisiana or a marginal player in the state of Louisiana, he gets the LSU and he becomes a superhuman. Because he grew up, like we grew up looking at the University of Miami, and you put them in there with proper training, give them a couple years of experience, see them mature, and they become monsters, you know?
Well, it's funny you say that. because I saw guys go to that I know could have not played at FIU, and I don't mean I know that probably doesn't make sense, but like, trust me, we had a lot of talent, and I saw guys put on a uniform at Miami, and I don't know if it's a sense of confidence or something like magical that happens, but it's like your game elevates. And it's kind of what you're telling me now at LSU is you get a good high school solid player from LSU, from the state of Louisiana, and you put him in the stadium, and he puts on this uniform with the proper coaching. I mean, something mentally happens to you too. And I think sports is such a mental game. It's such a game of confidence and a game of really believing in yourself. I think when you go to a program like that, things do happen.
Well, LSU is different because take, for example, Florida. You got Miami, you got UF, you got Florida State, all these great programs throughout the state, even like UCF and these programs that you have. And in LSU, in Louisiana, it was LSU or nothing. I mean, Tulane's a great program. University of Lafayette's a great program, but LSU was in a category of its own. So, I mean, the closest big league team to Baton Rouge is the Houston Astros, which is like 4 hours away. So these kids grow up idolizing LSU.
Wow.
And so it was my responsibility to make sure that we were locking up the best talent in the state of Louisiana. Loved recruiting kids from Lafayette, on down south. I always felt that they were more hard-nosed, tougher kids than the ones up, in the northern part of the state. But that was just my assessment. And, you have to build a program with kids from the state, not only because of scholarship issues and the tuition, but a lot of times you can get a kid who's an invited walk-on, let's say, or a non-scholarship player that ends up becoming like a real dude for you by the time he's a sophomore.
Yeah.
And it's tough to, try to convince a family out of state, hey, we want to recruit your kid. They don't really know much about LSU. They didn't grow up, bleeding the purple and gold, to come as a non-scholarship player and expect that family to make that sacrifice financially,
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about high school athletes and colleges. I mean, you were a recruiting coordinator at LSU. You were a player. You were once that kid. How is it now when you're on the flip side and now you're that guy recruiting that kid? What challenges did you face? What was the hardest thing for you? Maybe even not emotionally, but like when you're going to recruit a kid who thinks he's going to play shortstop, but he's really going to be a center fielder. What's that like? Is it? I feel like Division I baseball at that level is so business oriented as well.
Yeah.
What pressures did you have? Like, because now you're the coach, man. You got to sit in parents. You got to look at dad
and
mom.
it's everybody's dream growing up in the state to play at LSU, right?
Yeah.
And so I always try to pride myself on being brutally honest with the kids. Everybody that's a stud as a freshman or sophomore in high school was in our recruiting portal. We were getting out to see them. They were coming to camps. We knew who they were. They were on our radar. But the minute that I knew that we were going to go in a different direction, I always try to make it a point to reach out to that kid or family and let them know that, for the time being, LSU is not going to be an option for them.
How was that? Is it tough?
It was tough, but it was tough because I was one of those players.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's tough when you tell a kid that.
That's why I wanted to go out of
you're shattering him,
Exactly, but I also didn't want them holding out hope and me or our program stringing them along for something that's probably not going to be reality. And when you're recruiting at the highest level, what changed for me is like, everything was showcase ball. How fast does a kid run the 60? How much exit velo off his bat? How hard does the kid throw across the diamond, But I always try to analyze the way that the kid carried himself. Especially, I used to love to get out to see kids play with their high school team, not necessarily on the travel ball circuit, because that's where I think you get to know really the kid and, what his makeup is, what his DNA is, how are his teammates treating him in that environment, And I always try to go the extra mile. I wanted to talk to the high school coach. I wanted to talk to the summer coach. If there was a strength coach or somebody that he would train with, I'd try to get in there and get to know as much as I can. Just as much as I recruited the kid, I try to recruit the parents because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if I got a dog shit parent, chances are I'm probably going to end up with a crap kid.
Yeah.
Move on, So I really try to get deep in the weeds in recruiting and get to know, the makeup of these kids more so than just their ability and talent,
Yeah, and you had top recruiting classes in college baseball. I think, did you ever have a number one recruiting class?
I mean, Fern, over there we had a $43 million stadium. We're playing in the best conference in all of college baseball. Skip had won 5 national championships.
That's crazy.
I mean, there wasn't. We could handpick, essentially. We were going to be, finalists, top 3 schools of any, top prospect in the country. And we were getting commitments from kids as freshmen and sophomores at that time, And so I had no excuse not to turn over.
By the way, did any Florida schools ever recruit you to come out here?
A couple late.
And become a head coach?
Casanova, the late Casanova. Had a great relationship with him growing up.
So Kaz actually wanted you to come coach?
Yeah, he was actually a little upset. Oh, no, not to come coach. I thought you meant to play.
No, to coach.
No. I got a couple small mid-major feelers, but through coach, and he'd bring me in the office and we'd talk about it. But, coaching found me more than I found it. When coach called me, it was tugging on my heartstrings. I knew it's something that I could be good at, but I wasn't willing to just bounce around the country at some of these mid-majors and drag the family through that. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's probably what drove me out of coaching, is that I realized, look, I wasn't, the husband and father that I always envisioned being. My first daughter was born. I was constantly on the road recruiting. The phone was always blowing up with, recruiting at a high level in the SEC is like nonstop. Because once you commit a class, you're working on the next class and you're working on the next class. And it's like, I think in my last season.
So you didn't get to see your wife and kids as much as you wanted to?
No, those are the sacrifices that come with it. But in my last season there, Fern, if we play 56 games in a regular season in college, I probably missed like 22 of them. Missed games. Like out on the road, seeing our high school kids, trying to keep them,
Like you didn't even go to the games?
Would miss a midweek game or miss a Friday SEC game at Ole Miss because I was going to catch, our stud, pitcher from Georgia.
And Maneri rather that you do that than be in the field.
Yeah, we would make those decisions. What's going to be best for the program? Me not being a third base coach, for 9 innings, or me going to see a kid pitch on senior day, high school when he's got 25 scouts there and his agent there, and we're trying to, convince this kid to come to school because it's what's going to be in his best interest for his development, etc. So I would make that sacrifice.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that.
So there was things like that just opened my eyes up to this, big business of the collegiate game. And I just knew I got to a point there, maybe 6-7 years into coaching, that I knew I wasn't going to die a head coach. And that was tough. That was tough for me to deal with as well,
So you're coaching on LSU, you won a national championship, you understand the college business now, you build all these relationships. Now, Javi wants to spend more time with his wife, with his daughter. Realizes, okay, I think life's taking me in a different direction. When did that hit you?
Well, it was that, even before that, I'd get out to practice, Fern, and before I was like, dude, I used to love just hitting fungos, throwing beeps to the guys, just being there and seeing their development. You get an 18-year-old boy that's a punk, and he ends up graduating in 3 or 4 years as a man, and he's shaking your hand and hugging you, and that you had an impact in that kid's life.
It's fulfilling.
That's special, man. But it got to the point where, when you're trying to manage a roster with scholarships, I don't know how much you know, but so 35-man rosters at the time, 27 can be on scholarship. So immediately you already have 8 guys that are non-scholarship guys. And of the 27, you only have 11.7 scholarships to spread amongst that roster. So you would recruit a kid, say you give him 45% scholarship, and we're out there in fall ball, and all I would see floating over that kid's head was a 45%. Damn, we overpaid for this guy. Got this kid at a discount. Damn, this kid ended up working out well as a non-scholarship guy, So everybody...
did that matter to you, Javi? Did you guys pay the best players, whether or not the guy was on 45%, or did you give the guy on 45% more bats just because you need your return on investment?
You have to, as a staff, be able to go to bed every night knowing that you put the best field, that you fielded the best team that night.
Got it.
And gave you the best chance to win the game, regardless of how much.
Unlike professional baseball, where I saw guys that weren't doing too great. I mean, this is my experience.
You run those guys out there because you're investing in them.
You invested so much money.
Yeah. So those first rounders get every opportunity to fail, right? While guys like me, a 14th rounder senior sign, you have to constantly prove yourself. You're gonna have a way short
once every 4 days.
But at the collegiate game, we never guaranteed a kid playing time in the recruiting process. You never is a freshman gonna come in and, hey, you're gonna be our starting shortstop. We tell them what the depth chart's like. We tell them how we feel about them. We tell them if they work hard and continue on the trajectory that they're on, that we think that they can, become the starting shortstop as a freshman. But nothing was ever guaranteed to any player throughout that recruiting process. But what got difficult is when you're sitting in a living room with a family saying, hey, we want your kid, and then a year and a half later, you're running the kid off to a junior college because it just didn't pan out for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Those conversations happen. Yeah, and that was real for me. And I I got hard into it because I knew my responsibility was to that university, to that program, and to that staff, right? To go to bed every night knowing that I did everything in my power as a recruiting, helping the program recruit the best players and to field the best team.
No,
and I just couldn't get caught up on getting emotionally attached to each situation,
Yeah, no, and
hey, look, and at the end of the day, Fern, everybody writes their own story. Nobody gets fucked. You know
I
what
agree.
I mean?
I agree.
And so a lot of these kids that we recruit, they had a blank canvas. They had a clean slate. They can go out and make as good of an impression. And for whatever reason, if it didn't work out with certain guys, it got to a point where
it's not personal. It just didn't work out.
And there's a lot of pressure to win at the high level.
I was about to say I would only assume that the standard at LSU is
our
Omaha and
our recruiting budget. I would book flights the day of to go see a kid pitch that night and get back on a red eye that same night. Like the recruiting budget was, off the charts for us. So we had all those resources, but with that comes a lot of pressure and comes the expectation to win.
So you have this experience. You've gone through a minor league baseball. You've coached at the highest level. Was there ever the Javi where maybe I can become a head coach somewhere? Did that thought ever come to you, or during this whole recruiting process, you kind of realize, what, maybe this is my transition is near? Maybe
early in the career that was on my vision board, but it got to the point where I just knew that it wasn't a lifestyle that I wanted to have for the rest of my life. And what I mean by that is a weekend series, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're at the field over 14 hours every day for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's no Sunday, wake up, go grab brunch and go to church with the family during the season. And in the off season, you're out on the road recruiting. And I just thought to myself, if I could put that amount of energy and effort and resources into another industry and have my weekends and still maintain a better work-life balance, that I could be successful and feel just as fulfilled as well,
Yeah.
But I knew I wanted to get into an industry where I could leverage my years in baseball.
Correct.
Right, and everything I had learned.
And your passion, your love, and the love that you have, it kind of collaborates,
Exactly, and try to leverage that into something that I wasn't going to lose my network or all this, hard work that I had put in, not necessarily as a player, but more as a coach. Because, as a coach, I had relationships with, some of the premier agents in the game that were, recruiting our kids as well. A lot of scouts. The baseball world is small, and I was fortunate enough to have that platform at LSU that I was able to,
to build
meaningful relationships with people in the baseball world.
So you leave LSU and now you join a financial firm, and that was also in Louisiana, right? In New Orleans.
Yeah, they had a satellite office in New Orleans. It was based out of Beverly Hills. The gentleman who ran that firm was actually an LSU alum.
Okay.
That I had met a couple of years before, and that was another example of me just kind of willing something to happen. I didn't look. If you would ask me in college, you're going to get into finance, I would have told you you're crazy.
I would have done that.
Insurance, I didn't know. Entrepreneurial spirit. Finance and numbers weren't really my thing, and I had met this gentleman 2 years before, and he had a very successful wealth management practice. A lot of his clients were in the Hollywood space, entertainers, actors, producers out there in Beverly Hills. But he had a deep passion for LSU, so he had a handful of his clients were former LSU football players,
wow.
Tyrann Mathieu, Dwayne Bowe, Patrick Peterson, some of the more prestigious players that have come out of the program. And basically, he didn't take these guys on for the amount of money on their management that he was gonna have. It was more of these guys are LSU guys. I want to make sure they're getting taken care of. And so we forged a little bit of a relationship, and I just pretty much one day when I knew I was going to get out of coaching, I had the conversation with Paul. I flew to LA and had a sit down with Blaine, and we went back and forth for a couple months, and finally said, let's go, come on board. And so that firm was called Lord Murray. I was with them for 3 years, learned a lot. Still stay in touch with Blaine and Peter, the two gentlemen that were kind of my mentors there. And then I had the opportunity to join Gentrust about 2 years ago, which is a very similar shop based out of Miami that just happened to have a little niche in the baseball world.
By the way, how was Paul when you told him, hey, I think my time has ended?
We cried together. That was like a 2-hour long conversation, And he
must have a special relationship to have played for the gentleman for 4 years and have coached. How many years did you coach with him at LSU?
7.
That's that's 11 years. That's a decade together.
Yeah, I think at one point, if you consider my playing career, 4 years with him, and then 7, I was I was probably closer to him than my own parents. At one point in my life.
About to say, almost like a father figure.
Yeah, and he still is to this day. But it was one of those things, like, he's like, man, it kind of took him by surprise. And he's like, you got to think about this and come back to me. And we went back and forth for like a week, but my mind was made up,
You knew.
Yeah, I knew. And then what I wanted to do was make sure that I handed over the reins properly to whoever the next guy was going to be. So, Paul was great, and we put together like a little transition plan, and we kept it just between us before he went ahead and announced it, to the media. So he found the guy, my replacement, and then I worked with him for like 2 or 3 weeks, passing the baton on, letting him know everything that was going on with the recruits and where we were at before I actually parted ways.
That's guys, this is the beauty of and this is why I love talking about stories, because I knew you had a good story, and this is the beauty about sports. So it always goes back to what we talk about, Jay. It's the relationships, man. When you look back in your life now, all we have is, and what we take is our relationships. And everything, just from listening to you in the last 30, 45 minutes, is I just hear relationship. One thing leads to the other, one thing leads to the other, one thing leads to the other. And the great game of baseball really set that platform for you. And, I think sometimes guys look at it, whether it's baseball, gymnastics, whatever sport you're playing, you don't realize what the game is doing for you.
Absolutely, man.
For life, and the platform that it creates, and now you're having tremendous success with Gen Trust. And again, it all started on a baseball field. Your whole life started on a baseball field. If you draw a map and the lessons, man, of who Javi became, the diamond taught you a lot. So.
The diamond taught you a lot. Little things like backing up bases, hustling out a fly ball, picking up a teammate after the game is so much more important, more valuable in life than, the double off the wall.
The hustling off, in my brain, how I look at like hustling off a fly ball, it's making that extra phone call, that follow up.
Yeah, there's so many analogies.
Before we hustled on the basement. Now it's like, now I gotta call that client, or I gotta call that family. But it all that mindset started there, man, and it started when you're a kid. You have to take again, I say this all the time, and I won't stop saying it. The field teaches you what the classroom can't. The classroom's limited to what it can teach you.
It's hard to get punched in the face and fail in the classroom.
Yeah, you can't. In the field, you got to punch a guy back.
Yeah, in the field it happens. Where
or somebody tells you suck, you're not good enough, and you got to look at him in the eye and say, I got two options now. I'm either going to go home and feel sorry for myself, or I'm going to say, Coach, you know what? I'm going to get better.
I'm going to prove you wrong. Grit, I got determination. I got discipline. All those things is what you carry on in life, man. Even like, look at big leaguers, man. Nowadays, guys get into the game when they're 20 years old, to the big league level, I'm saying, and they're out of the game by the time they're 30, if they're fortunate and put in 10 years in the big leagues. Mm-hmm. One interesting thing that we're working on now is the MLB pension.
Okay.
It's like one of the greatest pensions in all of professional sports. It's like a $5 billion pension. And so these guys, if they put in 10 years, at the age of 45 that's the first year that they can start peeling from
that they're eligible for the pension.
Yeah, exactly. So say, I don't know the exact number right now, but let's say if I decide to take it at 45, I'm getting $80,000 for the rest of my life. And if something happens to me, then my significant other, my beneficiary, my wife in this case, would take it over. But if I wait till I'm 62, then it's like $280,000.
Can you imagine that?
Hey, I think I looked it up the other day. There's been over 20,000 big leaguers in the history of the game. 20,000. Only 1,200, about 1,200, have reached that milestone.
And that's a very accurate number. And that number was actually Tony Clark. I was in New York City in a meeting when we were having that discussion for that insurance policy. Tony Clark told me only 1,200 guys had ever hit pension. So that is a real number. You do the math, guys. How many guys? There's 750 major leaguers. And you go all the years, how many guys actually play 10 years? What nobody realizes is even a big leaguer, right? You're the top 1%. The average career is 3 years. Guys, we got to set ourselves up for transition in life. At some point, you're not going to play the game forever.
Hey.
And athletes, I think athletes nowadays are more conscious of it. Like the more I see more guys getting into broadcasting, more guys getting into like business, and it's a fresher breath air, because you're like, you know what, man, guys are realizing this is not forever. Guys are making investments, and again, I am a huge advocate for athletes in business. I think if you own a company and you have athletes that can walk in through your door, you're going to have guys and girls that can take instructions, that have character, they have discipline, they have determination, they understand how to fail.
Work ethic, man.
Work ethic. And Javi, how many guys, I mean, we can talk about work ethic forever, but you just said it. There was guys that you felt were better than you, but they were never going to fucking outwork you.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know that you can teach that.
How does it go? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
I love that.
You know?
I love that. And that's true. And you're applied in your personal life. You know, you gotta you gotta work hard to be a good husband, and you gotta work hard to be a good, it's like my father-in-law little times, give me a little bit of advice, like, you gotta water the flower, you gotta water the plant, you gotta talk to your kids. It's hard work. We're here to work, guys. We're not here to be zombies. I mean, it's a part of the game, and you find success when you work hard, when you put that determination. But again, for looking at you as a local Miami guy and seeing the success and the experience that you've had, I think it's so important that we share that. I do have two questions for you before we wrap this up. What advice would you give to high school parents whose kids are on the field, and we can this can be on any sport, whether it's baseball, football, tennis, dance. What advice do you have for parents out there who are trying to help their children get to the next level, and they may not have the resources to do that, or the relationships, and they have a son or a daughter who's got talent? Like what I know it's kind of,
you're talking about like inner city or somebody who's...
No, I'm just talking about like from your perspective, an advice that you would give a parent for an up and coming high school athlete who's trying to get somewhere. What would you tell them today?
I'd probably tell them, like, look, your kid's probably not as good as you think he is, and he's not as bad as you think he is. And to focus not so much...
That's really good.
And to focus not so much on the results, because baseball at the end of the day, or any sport for the most part, it's a game of failure, man. But don't lose the lessons. Control the things that you can control, which is being a good teammate, showing up on time, doing extra work, all the things that take zero talent. Those are the things that you need to maximize, because those are the things that you're going to carry on in life. The chances of a kid on a high school team here in Miami playing at FSU or the University of Miami, the percentages, just like you talked about the big leagues, is very slim. And parents need to get a handle on that and say, okay, how could I use baseball or whatever sport as an avenue to teach my kid some discipline, some work ethic, something that's going to make him more of a man and make him better in life, and not get caught up on the results, on the scholarships, on the notoriety, on what you did in this game. Focus on the things that you can control.
And Javi, my son's in coach pitch, and I see it. I see where parents' heads go, and it's scary.
Well, it's instinctive, I think, like, as a parent,
I think
you
so.
See your kid there strike out, it like zaps you, and like you get in the car. And,
yeah.
I don't have a boy, and thank God, because who knows how I would be. But
you think
I think as I've gotten older, I've realized that, like, what really matters in this life. I'm learning, obviously, every day.
We all
growing.
are.
But I used to be more of like a very aggressive, affirmative. And now I've learned to, like, chill out more and see what's really
what's important. I'm the same way. I think I've that's in my persona. What would you tell the 18-year-old Javi Sanchez?
Don't change a thing, man. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. I got him. All right, guys. Great podcast. Javi, thank you for coming on, bro.
Thank you, brother.
There you go. I got him. I had to get him.